So Joe Rogan had COVID and he has recovered. It took him a day or two to recover. This was a big story while I was on vacation. I wanted to weigh in on it. So here are the drugs that he took for COVID. I'm not sure how well you guys can hear this, but I'll play it and tell me in the comments how well you could hear this.
Immediately through the kitchen sink at it, all kinds of meds, monoclonal antibodies, ivermectin, Z-Pak, prednisone.
So those are the drugs that he took to treat COVID. And there was a lot of controversy over this. I feel sort of like fake controversy and ginned up. And here's the claim that a lot of people in the media are making. They're saying, hey, he took ivermectin. This is happening at the same time that there have been these articles coming out saying that there are people in the middle of the country who are using ivermectin, but they're actually getting the veterinary version of ivermectin. So there's a horse paste version of it. And so a lot of people are saying it's just a horse dewormer. It's one of the drugs that they use to treat livestock when they have parasites, I guess. And now, obviously, there's also a human version of the drug that people take for other things. And clearly, Joe Rogan took the human version, and he was prescribed it by a doctor. And it is, there are some doctors who believe in off-label use for ivermectin. And from my look at the evidence and look at the data and look at the studies to this point on ivermectin, it strikes me that it's going to go the way of hydroxychloroquine, where it's not really going to be used as a main treatment for COVID. And one of the studies that the initial support of ivermectin was based on had to be retracted because it was effectively fraudulent. That doesn't mean there aren't some doctors that still believe there's a benefit. There's still some doctors who think there's a benefit for hydroxychloroquine, but hydroxychloroquine is off-label use for COVID. Ivermectin is off-label use for COVID. He obviously had seen something that led him to believe that this stuff works. But the media was saying, oh, Rogan is taking horse dewormer. And Rogan came out afterwards and was like, do I have to sue CNN? Do I have to sue Jim Acosta and all these outlets saying I'm taking horse dewormer? I'm obviously not taking the horse version of ivermectin. I'm taking the human version of it that was prescribed to me by a doctor. So there is a lot of it's so sloppy and so loose. And the media is going after him, I think, simply because a lot of them just don't like Joe Rogan. So they're portraying everything he's doing in the most negative light. But I will say this, in my personal opinion, I don't think I would have had ivermectin in my list of things to take, because from my reading of the evidence so far, it's probably going to go the way of hydroxychloroquine. Now, they're doing some other studies on it right now, some more long-term studies on it right now, and when the results of that come out, we'll see just how effective it really is. But as of right now, the evidence is not there and the data is not there to justify using that as an effective treatment against COVID-19. So this got me thinking. Now, by the way, I'm happy Joe's okay. He's the nicest guy in the world. I've been on his podcast a number of times, and he's the easiest person in the world to talk to. And I feel like he's genuinely open to changing his mind when he has a conversation, and if you present counter evidence, he'll be like, oh, that's interesting. I never thought of it that way. So, I mean, he's just a really good guy overall. I'm really happy that he got better, and he got better quickly. He said he had one night of fever and chills and just feeling run down and terrible, and then when he threw the kitchen sink at it, to use his words, and used all these drugs, he got much better. But this did get me thinking, if I got COVID, what would I take? What would I do? And actually my answer was very, very simple. I just want the Trump drug regimen, because they gave the most powerful man on earth. They had to treat him apparently when he was in really rough shape from COVID. It wasn't really known publicly. They were hiding it, but he was having trouble breathing, all sorts of issues. So what did they give Trump when he was in the hospital with COVID? So first of all, they gave him dexamethasone, which is a steroid that they've been using, and there's studies on that show it really helps COVID patients. So, but that's more for it's dexamethasone. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Dexamethasone, I don't know what stage of the process they give it to you. The one that really helps, that there's a lot of evidence, is remdesivir, and Trump had that too. So I would just want the Trump, drug regimen. I'd want the dexamethasone, remdesivir, the Regeneron's monoclonal antibody stuff. Then they also gave him zinc and vitamin D and melatonin and famotidine. It's used to treat ulcers and heartburn and indigestion, and it reduces the amount of acid in the stomach. and apparently there's some evidence that it does positive stuff for COVID, and aspirin as well, Trump took. So let me run through one more time. He took 8 drugs overall: dexamethasone, remdesivir, Regeneron's monoclonal antibodies, zinc, vitamin D, famotidine, and melatonin and aspirin. That's what Trump had. If I ever get COVID, and you're a doctor who watches this show, hit your boy up and hook me up with this exact drug regimen. Now, I'll leave it up to the experts to tell me what order to take the shit in. Like, I think the remdesivir they use for very latent COVID when you're really, really struggling. So maybe I won't even get to the point where I need remdesivir, especially because I've been vaccinated. But keep that in your back pocket, dog, and hook a brother up if I get COVID. But really, and I actually texted Joe about this when I learned he had COVID. I told him, don't hesitate if you need to take more of the monoclonal antibodies, because now, I'm not a doctor, I'm an idiot. My opinion is like worth absolutely nothing when it comes to science stuff and health stuff and medicine stuff. But that's the shit I know I would want the most of. Like, hook me up with the Regeneron's monoclonal antibodies, because that shit is what I really think, and I don't know, but it's one of the things I think really helped save Trump. So, and remember, Joe had that. Now, I don't know which drug Joe attributes his recovery to, if any of them, but when I look at it, I really think it was probably the monoclonal antibodies that did the most work and did the most heavy lifting and probably fixed him up real quick. Because he's pretty healthy. He's, relatively young in the grand scheme of things. I mean, he's in his, early 50s. So you're healthy, you work out all the time, he has a good diet, early 50s, and he did throw the kitchen sink at it with the drug regimen he took. So he got better quickly, and that's a very, very good thing. And the issue is this: there's not going to be many people who have access to the monoclonal antibody stuff, and that's a shame, because I think that's really, really helpful for this stuff. So you could argue that's the thing that really made the difference. My layman's opinion, my guess is that that's the thing that really made the difference. And that's why I texted him and said, listen, if you feel bad, don't hesitate to take more of that shit, because that shit will probably help the most. But again, I'm an idiot. I'm not a doctor. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. All I'm telling you is what I would really want if I got COVID and I was starting to feel some symptoms. Just give me the Trump drug regimen, because that shit worked. Trump is 1,000 years old. He's fat like Jabba the Hutt, and he was able to recover. And it's because he got the best treatment in the world. So what we're looking at here is like the best treatment in the world. Joe's treatment, even though he has access to any drug he wants, he didn't have like the best treatment in the world. The monoclonal antibody thing, that really is great, but the other stuff he didn't have. And funny enough, I think the other stuff is relatively cheap to get too, or cheaper than the monoclonal antibodies. So anyway, there you have it. I'm happy Joe Rogan is better. The media should really reel it in a little bit with like the fake outrage. Don't get me wrong. Like there are people out there who are poking fun at the people who are taking the veterinary version and the horse paste of ivermectin. Hey, I get it. Have fun. Go at it. It is what it is. It is an easy joke that's just sitting there waiting for people to make, because there is a livestock version of the drug. So I get it. But all I'm saying is don't fool yourself into believing the narrative too much, because it is sort of an unfair description. You could say it's funny, ha ha he he, but if you're the news, your job is not to be ha-ha, he-he funny, is to tell the truth. And they're saying he took horse dewormer, he didn't. He took the human version of ivermectin, which granted, there's really not enough evidence to say that that's the thing that fights COVID well, but that is what he took, the human version. So don't lie and say it was horse dewormer or whatever. That does strike me as a little bit disingenuous, even though some people have said it and then hid behind, well, we're just joking. Okay, if you're joking, fine, it is what it is. But to the media, to the news, to CNN, don't be dishonest about it. And I do get the sense that they are dishonest about it. But anyway, I'm happy Joe's better. I do think that this should be one of those moments, though, where people wake up and realize, I don't know Joe's vaccine status. I don't think he's vaccinated. It's very possible if he was vaccinated, he wouldn't have gotten it at all. He attributes the fact that he was drinking and out all night to like weakening his immune system, which then allowed him to get it. I don't know how backed up that is by the science. I do know that when it comes to the vaccines, the numbers are very, very clear, and this is for all the vaccines. You have about 50% protection from breakthrough cases. So in other words, you can be vaccinated and you have 50% protection of just not getting COVID even if you're exposed to it. But that does mean there's a 50% chance you could get it if you're exposed to it. But if you do get it, it's overwhelmingly likely that it's very mild symptoms. and you still have over 95% protection from severe illness, hospitalization, and death. Those are the only numbers that really matter. And so it is possible if you had the vaccine, you wouldn't have even gotten the breakthrough case in the first place. So, use this as a cautionary tale. Go get vaccinated. It'll definitely help you to not get COVID, but if you do get COVID, it'll be super mild if you do get it. So the vaccine is really the answer, and then hopefully we don't have to have the conversation about what drugs you need if you get it, what your treatment would be. But I'm now public with what I would want for my treatment, so any doctors out there, hook a brother up if need be.